Hello, my wonderful children. I'm happy to have you online. How was the test? Great. I'm happy to hear that you did it well. Trust you. I hope you're writing your notes. You're watching the videos and you're writing your notes. Good. Today, the subject we have before us is basic science. And the topic is crops. The last class we learned flowers, parts, and the function of each of the parts. And we summarize everything to seed formation. We brought everything down to what is called seed formation. And we said, by now, you should start looking at plants all around you. And you should start monitoring how it's growing. A very good one at this season is maize plants. Once you dig the ground, you put your maize, the seeds inside the ground, and you cover it up. After a few days, you start seeing the seedling. That is the flower, will start coming up. And that's a very good example of what we learned. Then the sepals will grow up. And after a while, you have the filaments holding the anther, and you have another part for the pistil. Where you have the style down to the ovary. Then you have the stigma up. Then after a while, you will see the fruit coming up, where you have the seeds inside the fruit. Now, the next topic, or the topic that we have before us today, is crops. At the end of the lesson, each of the pupils should be able to state the meaning of crops, mention the two types of crops, define the concept, raw materials using cash crops, and again explain each concept on food crops. Now, what are crops? Crops are plants grown for food. Crops are plants grown for food or other usefulness. They are plants. We are still talking about plant reproduction. They are plants grown for food or other usefulness. There are two types of crops. These are cash crops and food crops. There are two types of crops. They are cash crops and food crops. Now, let's take them one after the other. The first one we are looking at is cash crops. Cash crops. What are cash crops? Cash crops are crops grown for sale. Cash crops are crops that you plant or that are grown for sale. The main purpose of planting such crops are for you to make profit. The main purpose of planting such crops is for you to make profit. The main purpose of planting such crops is for you to make profit. They are also used as raw materials. Cash crops are grown for sale, and they are also used as raw materials to make other things. They are also used as raw materials to make other things. Raw materials are unfinished products. Raw materials are unfinished products used to prepare materials or goods for immediate consumption or usage. Cash crops are plants grown for future use. They are grown for future use. The main purpose of planting such crop, is for profit making. It's for profit making. A farmer has decided to go into the occupation of farming. And he or she is specializing on cash crops. The main purpose of specializing on that cash crops is for profit making, and it is not for immediate consumption. Can you see that? It is for a long term. It's for a long term. It's not for immediate consumption. It is not like the one that will go to the garden and you just want to prepare small soup. We'll go to the garden, we'll pluck pepper, we'll pluck vegetable, we'll cook it. No, cash crops are grown for sale. They are grown for sale. They are used as raw materials to make other things. And what are raw materials? Raw materials are unfinished products used to prepare materials or goods for immediate consumption. It is used for preparing other materials or goods for immediate consumption. So, meaning that the cash crops are for future use. Cash crops are for future use. Examples of cash crops. Number one, cotton. Are you surprised to hear that we plant cotton? Cotton that you use to produce cloths. The clothes that we wear, the wrapper that you used to cover yourself last night when the weather was cool. Yes, we plant cotton. We plant cotton, and the cotton is planted for future use. It is a form of cash crop. It's a form of cash crop. Another one is coffee. Coffee. Another example is coffee. Coffee to produce drink. To produce drink. To produce drink. Another example is groundnuts. Groundnuts is a crop. Groundnuts to produce groundnut oil. Groundnut oil. You know, mommy use groundnut oil to fry things for you. And it is always delicious. But do you know that the ones that we buy in the market are fermented? They are fermented or overheated palm oil. Overheated palm oil. They are not really groundnut oil. But groundnuts, you produce groundnut oil from groundnuts, the real groundnuts that we eat. Yes. Then we have cocoa. Cocoa to produce beverages or chocolates. Then we have rubber. Rubber to produce latex. Rubber to produce latex. Then we have rubber. Rubber to produce latex. Rubber to produce latex. Then we are going to look at the other type of crop. The other type of crops, which is food crops. Food crops. What are food crops? Food crops are crops grown for immediate consumption. For immediate consumption. Remember, I told you that cash crops are grown for future use. For future use. Now, food crops are crops grown for immediate consumption. For immediate consumption, they include number one, tuber or root crops. Tuber or root crops. Tuber or root crops. Tuber or root crops. Food crops are grown for immediate consumption. And like I told you that cash crops are grown for future use. They are grown for future use, but food crops are crops grown for immediate consumption, for immediate eating. They include number one, tuber or root crops. These are crops that store their excess food, usually starch. The root crops they are usually starch, carbohydrates. In their swollen on the ground organs, they store their food, their carbohydrates. We get carbohydrates from tuber or root crops, and they store these carbohydrates or starch in their swollen on the ground organs. They are uprooted at harvest. They are uprooted at harvest. Remember I said we have sexually and asexual reproduction in plants. In plants, that some take the vegetative form by planting the stem, by planting the branch, by planting the root. By planting the root. Now, roots or tuber crops store their starch, that's their food. And the class of food that we get from root or tuber crops is carbohydrates. It's carbohydrate. They store this carbohydrate in their swollen on the ground organs. They are uprooted at harvest. They go deep down, and you need to uproot them from the ground in order to get tuber or root crops. Example, cassava. Cassava. Are you surprised? Yes. That's why it's good to go to village for a tour. You go to a village for a tour, you go greeting grandma, go for a visit to greet grandma. You learn all this. And if you are not opportune to do that, you can as well read and get this knowledge. Education is light. Yes. We get tuber or root crops from the ground. Example, cassava. Cassava. Another example is yam. You dig the ground in order to bring the yam out. Another example is potato. Then we have cocoyam. We also have carrots, and so on and so forth. Another type of food crop is cereals. Cereals or grains. Cereals or grains. Cereals or grains. Cereals or grains. Cereals are starchy grains. They are starchy grains. That is, they store their starch in their grains. They are starchy grains. They store their starch in their grains. 90% of the food that we eat contains starch. Yes, the calories, that is the weight of what we consume. They are 90% starch. So they store starch in their grains, in their seed. Those ones that you can see as seed are cereal or grains. They are cereals or grains. Example, they include beans that you can see as seed. Do you understand? That you can see as seed. Then you call it cereals or grains, food crops. Example, you have beans, soya beans, maize, rice, groundnut, melon. These ones we can see them as grains. We can see them as grains, as seed. As seed. They are known as cereals or grains. Cereals or grains. Another example of food crop is vegetables. Vegetables. Vegetables are crops whose leaves or fruits are eaten raw or cooked. Example, tomatoes, cucumber, pumpkin leaves, carrots, pepper, onions, cabbage. These are vegetables whose fruits or leaves are eaten raw or cooked, that you can eat their leaves. I want to believe you know the parts of the parts of a plant. It has leaves, then it has stem, it has roots, the leaves we have branches. Good. So we have the fourth type of food crop as fruits. These are crops whose seeds are covered by succulent pulp. That is, have watery, fleshy parts eaten raw by man. Example, mango. And that's why it's always good to eat the back of most of these fruits. Yes, they are medicinal. Yes. An example, we have mango because the flesh is watery. It has watery, fleshy parts that can be eaten raw. We have orange, we have banana, we have pawpaw, we have cashew, and so on and so forth. Let's do a recap of what we have learned. We said crops are plants grown. They are plants grown for food. They are plants grown for food or other usefulness. Crops are plants grown for food or other usefulness. And I said we have two types of crops. They are number one, cash crops, and number two, food crops. Cash crops are crops grown for sale. Cash crops are crops grown for sale. They are for future use. They are used as raw materials, and raw materials are unfinished products used to prepare materials or goods for immediate consumption. And we listed examples of cash crops that you can use to produce another good or another produce. Like cotton. A cotton is a plant. When you plant cotton, you keep it for future use, and by so doing, you get your clothing material from it. Can you see that it's not for immediate consumption? It's not for immediate eating. Good. Then we have another type of crop as food crops. Food crops are grown for immediate consumption. They are grown for immediate consumption. They include tuber or root crops. These are crops that store their starchy food and their swollen underground organs. They are always uprooted at harvest. Then we have cereals or grains. They are also starchy food, but this time around they store their food in the grains or in their grains, the seed. These are the ones that you can see as seeds. Tuber are those ones that you can see that will be uprooted at harvest from the ground. But cereals or grains are starchy grains that store their food in their grains, in their seeds. Then we have another type as vegetables. Another type of food crops that we can use that are grown for immediate consumption as vegetables. They are crops whose leaves or fruits are eaten raw or cooked. Then we have the last one as fruits. They are crops whose seeds are covered by succulent pulp. They have watery, fleshy parts that can be eaten raw by man. These are the two categories of classification of crops. The two categories of classification of crops. One is for immediate consumption, while the other one is for future use. And which one is for immediate consumption? Food crops, they are for immediate consumption, while cash crops are for future use. And the time duration the time duration for the two to grow, the time duration for these two types of crops to grow also vary. It varies. Yes, food crops can take just like few months, to grow. While cash crops will take like a year, 2 years, or more than that to grow. Can you see that it is not for immediate consumption? It is not. And these are the types of food crops. We have tuber or root crops, we have cereals or grain crops, we have vegetables, and we have the last one as fruits. Basic science that we are doing this term is more of practical. Yes, practical. Education is light. It's just like turning us to farmers. It's just like turning us to farmers, and I've told you the major occupation in Nigeria is farming. So you should not just eat these crops. You should know how they are planted, how they grow, how they are harvested, and how they are taken to the market. Yes. Thank you very much for listening and for watching the video. Make sure you write your notes. Make sure you write your notes and you follow the video. Make sure you follow the video very attentively. Make sure you follow the video very attentively and you write your notes. Remember, in this time that we have, our personal hygiene is very, very, very essential. If you have any cause to leave the four-wall corner of your house, make sure you put on your face mask. Make sure you put on your face mask. The good Lord will continue to keep us safe, and we'll meet in the school at peace. We'll meet at peace, and His banner over us remains the love. Have a nice time. Bye. Don't pump too much on mom and dad. Is that taking? Good of you.